Hi all, welcome back to my video series on core Java. So in this video, we're gonna talk about what is string class basically, okay? And how it is useful from Java or Selenium perspective, right? So now one thing I want to emphasize here is that string class is quite frequently used in Selenium, right? Because whenever we fire any command from Selenium to our web application, we always get data in the form of string. So it's very important we should understand how do you compare strings, how do you split, replace, trim, length, and so on and so forth, right? So let's get started, right? So what I'm gonna do here, let me close all the programs first. So I'm gonna create a new project, okay? Let's say module 6, and we are learning string class, okay, like this. Okay, I'll expand the project. Under source, I'll right click and create new package, package 1. Let's understand basics of string, right? So I've created a package, package 1 underscore string underscore basics. Under this package, I'm going to create one class with the name example1. Okay, I'll create main method here, so just write down main control space. At times it takes a little while to show this IntelliSense. Okay, now let's assume I have one string str1 equals to like this, for example Pune. Okay, now I might want to find the length of the string, right? So to find the length of string, basically you simply have to say here sys out, because I want to print this length, so I'll say str1 dot length basically, right? So str1 is string and length is the method of that string. As I said, string is a class in Java, right? And this length is a method. So if I execute the string, if I execute this program, you should see length coming as 4. Do you see? I'll just make it proper. Length of string is 4 basically, correct? Like this. Okay, now second common operation performed through Selenium is how do you compare, or in Java is how do you compare two strings. Okay, compare two strings basically. So let's assume we have string 2, for example the value of this, okay, so string str2, the value, let's say Pune city, like this. I have another string str3, and again let's say it is Pune city only, right? Now I want to compare these two strings. So how do I perform comparison of two strings? So it's very simple. So the method is str2. So this string I want to compare, let's say dot equals is the method provided by string class, and I want to compare that with string 3, right? I want to evaluate this, so I'll put it in if. So if this returns true, print match. Okay, two values match. Okay, else I'm gonna say here they do not match, correct? Mismatch, like this, correct? Fair enough. So this is an example of comparing two strings. So in Selenium we would get some string from our UI, and that I want to compare with the expected string basically, correct? Now at times we might want to compare by ignoring the case as well. Okay, so I'll say compare with ignore case. Okay, and I'll say string, let's say str4. Let's say I have some called as, let's say Infosys. Okay, and then I have another string str5 Infosys, like this. Now in this case I want to do the comparison, no doubt, but if you see, one is in capital letter, one is in small, right? So I want to compare by ignoring the case. So I'm going to just say if str4 ignore case, just a second, equals ignore case and string 5, correct? And just open bracket like this, sys out, say match, else sys out mismatch, correct? So if you see, if I put a breakpoint at line number 22, if I run it in a debug mode, let's see how it goes. See, the control has come here, and if I do step over now, it went inside because this particular has written as true, right? And that's the reason it went into if block. Okay, right. So for what we learned, how do you find length of the string, how do you compare, by ignoring the case, correct? Now let's learn some more methods. So I'm going to create another class, let's say example 2. Okay, and so there are lots of method, okay, related to string. I'm going to take the methods which are very important, which we're going to frequently used. Okay, now in this case, let's understand how do I partially verify some contents of a string. Okay, for example, I have a string str1, and let's say Pune, Mumbai, Bangalore, Chennai. Let's say I have a string having 4 different city names. Okay, now I simply want to check whether does it contains Mumbai word. So I'm going to simply say here str1 dot contains. See, so contains is basically I'm checking whether some part is present in the given string or not, right? So if the part is present, it will return true. If not, it's gonna return false. Doesn't matter at what location the string is present. Okay, so if you see here sys out, I'm gonna say Mumbai is present in str1 string, correct? And if I execute this, it will return me true, correct? Now if I give anything wrong, does not contain str1. Okay, if I give some different word, let's say xxxxx, so of course this text is not present in the str1, so see, I get does not containing like this. Okay, so contains is used to check your string partially, basically whether it contains some part of the string or not. Okay, okay, moving on. Now there's something called a starts with. Okay, then you have something called as ends with. So as its name suggests, okay, let's say for example I have a string str2, okay, and let's say Amit. Okay, now I want to check whether this name starts with a or not. So I'm gonna simply use if, first of all, because I want to print something. So str2, the method would be starts with, basically, correct? And I'm going to check whether does it starts with am or something like this. Okay, and then I'll say name starts, or rather str2 starts with am, correct? So again, if I execute this code, see, so this is starts with. In the same fashion, you have something called as ends with as well. Okay, if you want to see whether this string ends with t or not. Okay, so I'm going to simply say, instead of starts with, I'll say here ends with, correct? And I'll say does it ends with t. Okay, I'll say here str2 ends with t, right? And if you see, if I execute this code again, this gets evaluated and it would return true, and this line gets executed because Amit ends with t. See, right? So in this exam, what we learned here, what is contains, what is starts with, what is ends with. Okay, now let me create another class. Okay, example 3 I created. Just a second, it's taking time to load. Oops, my Eclipse got crash. Okay, so I have opened one more time, and let me open example 3. Okay, now let's continue. Okay, so I'm going to create a main method. Now guys, let's see some more methods of string. Okay, so I have, let's say, str1. Now let's say I have a word which has this spaces in front and towards end, basically. So leading and trailing spaces this particular string is having. Now let's say I want to compare this with another string str2, and it's like Pune city. Pune city. Now of course, if I compare these two strings, it would give me false because one is having spaces and the other string does not have the spaces, right? So if you see here, this is match, else I'm gonna say this is mismatch. Okay, like this. So of course, if I execute this code, it would say me mismatch because this has some spaces whereas this doesn't have spaces, right? So what I'm going to do here, before I do comparison, I want to trim this particular string. So trimming a string is nothing but you're deleting the leading and trailing spaces. Okay, one thing, keep a note of one thing here. The spaces which are in between, they are never trimmed. Okay, it's only leading and trailing spaces. Okay, so what I'm going to do here, will take str1, I will do trim here first, and then I want to compare. So this str1 is trimmed, so I'll get something like this, and then I'm going to compare. So now it should return me as a match. See, got it? So this is about trim, right? Now let's learn substring. Okay, so let's say I have a string, something like this, date. Let's say today is some date, let's say 12 12 1947, some date. Okay, now let's say I want to pull only the year of it. Okay, I'm not interested in this part. Okay, so how do I get some part of the string? Okay, that is substring, some part of the string. Okay, so again I'm going to use here sys out, let's say, because I want to sys out that value. So I'll say str3 dot, there's something like substring, right? And you just have to pass from where you want to pull that till where. So let's say 0 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 10 11 11 12 13 14. So I'll say like this. Okay, and let me execute this. See, it's giving me 1947. So what I did, I found the index of this one digit, right? It comes at 11th location, right? Starting with 0, and then 11 12 13 14. This is 14. So the last index is always last minus 1. So it is 15 minus 1 is 14 basically. So it would only fetch the characters from 11th location till 14 basically, and if you see, I'm getting that much here. So substring is always used whenever you want to partially fetch some part of your string, not all. Okay, then okay, let's move on. Then again I'm gonna create another, let's say, string str4, and let's say Infosys. Okay, like this. No, just a second. Okay, now there's something called as char add, character add. So if I say character at 0th location, what it should print? I, basically, right? So at times you might want to fetch certain character of your string. Okay, so what is the method? Char add. These all these methods are, they are self-explanatory. Okay, so now again, if I execute this, see, I'm getting just I here as a part of this. Okay, char add. Okay, okay, now I'm gonna create another example. Okay, let's create main method here. Okay, and I'll say string str1 equals to, let's say, Pune, Mumbai, Mumbai, Bangalore, Chennai, like this. Okay, now at times you might want to replace some part of your string with something else. Okay, for example, let's say I want to replace Mumbai with Bombay. Okay, in this string. So how to replace some part of your string with some other part, basically? Okay, so of course there is a method called as replace, right? So I'm gonna say here, let's say sys out, because I want to print the replaced value. So I'll say str1 dot replace, and what I want to replace, I want to replace Mumbai, let's say, with Bombay. Correct? So what will happen on this string str1, this replace method will replace all the occurrences of Mumbai with Bombay, and it would print the new string. Correct? So let me execute this, and if you see, Mumbai got replaced with Bombay now on the console. Do you see like this? Okay, now so this was the example for replace. Correct? Now let's understand what is split now. Okay, so let's say again I have one string str2. Let's say I have something like this. I have employee number 1822, and let's say the name, employee name is Amit. Let's say the gender is male, and let's say he stays in Pune city, and let's say the zip code is 411001, like this. Okay, so I have a string like this. Now I want to only print the name of the employee. I'm not interested in the rest of the string, rest of the contents of the string. I am interested only in the name of that employee. So if you see here, this string is delimited, rather separated by something called as pipe, right? Let me make it as a hash. One second, it's a special character. So okay, so if you see here, this string is separated by hash, right? So employee ID, then hash, then Amit, hash mail, hash Pune, hash 4104. So can I think in this manner? Let's say if I split the string using a delimiter hash, then I will get parts of my string in the form of array, and then I'll take the first element of this array. 0th is this one, first is Amit, right? Then I can print it. So there's a method on your string called as split, and you can split the string using a delimiter. The delimiter is nothing but a separator, right? Now whenever you split a string, it always returns you a string array. Correct? So I have to assign this to a string array. Correct? I'll say str2 parts. So the string is splitted now, and I got the splitted string into this array. Now I'm interested in only the employee name, right? So I'll just say here sys out, and like this. Okay, so if I execute this code now, see, I'm just getting Amit. Now if somebody asks you, can you print the employee number, so I just have to make 0 here. So that's at 0th location. Correct? So this is how you perform split, actually. Okay, see, these methods are required in Selenium. Okay, because at some point of time you want to split a string before you compare. Okay, For example, let me give you example of a replace. For example, you have a date, right? str3, like say you have a date like this, 12 12 1947. Okay, now let's say you want to compare this with the expected date, right? And that is, let's say, exp date is, let's say, something like this. So how do I compare these two dates? Because one is having this extra word in it, right? So what I'm going to do here, I will replace this date with nothing and then I will compare. So something like this. So I'll say if str3 dot replace, I'll replace the old character date with nothing, right? And then I'll say equals to expected date. Okay, so what I'm doing, I'm removing the unwanted part. Okay, dates match. So what I did, I removed this unwanted part of str3 using replace, and then I'm comparing with the expected date. So if I execute this code now, see, now I get dates match. Now without this replace, if I compare, of course they will not match, correct? So if you see here, let me write down else sys out dates mismatch like this. Okay, and if I execute this now, see, I get dates mismatch. So it's very important to do the replacement of this date word, then only they can be matched, correct? All right, so in an interview, okay, at times they might ask you, can you tell me any 5 important methods of string class? Okay, so you can name any 5 methods. So let's say length, then you have contains, then you have equals, okay, then you have split, replace, okay, trim, then you have starts with, ends with, substring, okay, and so then you have char, add, and there are few more as well. Okay, I didn't take all of them, but they are self-explanatory. Okay, there are few more as well, right? Okay, now let's move on. Now one of the common question asked in an interview is that, now as you know, string is a class, correct? String is a class, nothing but it's a meaning, it's a non-primitive data type, correct? Because this is something created by programmer for their ease. That's the reason we call it as non-primitive data type, correct? So now if you see, so far whatever we have learned, we are always writing like string str1 some name, and let's say Pune. Now as we know, if it's a class, we should be writing it like this, correct? If you go back to our oops concept, then we should be writing it like this. Okay, so then what is the difference between these two? Because we are always using these like this, right, and not like this. So you might, someone might ask you a question in an interview that what is the difference between these two and why we always use this only. Okay, so let me open MS Paint to explain this. Okay, now what happens, okay, since strings are quite frequently used in any language, right? So even Java does use strings very frequently. Okay, so in case of a string, Java has something called as string pool or pool of string. Okay, something called as string pool concept. What Java has a concept called a string pool, meaning, for example, whenever you declare some variable like this, just a second. Okay, so whenever you declare something like this, okay, so let's say you declare 4 variables, okay, str1, str2, str3, str4. So in this case what Java does is that it creates one value with the name called as Pune. in your string pool, right? Now str1 is having Pune value, so what it does, it points to this Pune value. And what is the variable here? I'm sorry, what is the variable? The variable is basically str1, correct? Now again you have same value, but this time it is assigned to str2. So what string pool does, it will not create another value in the memory. What it does basically, it creates, again this is a variable, sorry, my bad. Okay, so str2 is a variable, but it is having the same value. So what string pool does, it points str2 to the same value basically, right, like this. Again you have different two more variables, let's say like this, and then like this. So this is your str4, okay, and this is your str3. So what is happening in case of a string pool, only one value is created in the memory, okay, and all four variables are pointing to the same value. So what is the benefit of doing this? So the benefit is basically it is saving your memory, isn't it, right? Unlike, okay, if I go with the normal approach, let's say like this, just a second. So if I, instead of this type of declaration, if I do something like this, new of, let's say, string, let's say Pune, okay, if I do something like this, so in this case what happens basically, so four objects are created on your heap, right, isn't it? So I'm gonna have four objects here, one, let's say two, then I have three, and then I have four, right? And of course I have four references which are pointing to these objects, right? One is str1, the other is str2, then I have str3, and then I have str4, correct? So unnecessarily we know that the value is same, however the objects created in the memory here, if you see, they are, how many objects I have created here? Four objects, right? So the memory consumption with this type of approach is quite significant compared to this one, right? So that's the reason we always, in Java, we always declare strings like this, so that eventually it uses the concept of string pool basically, and not like this, okay? um all right, so that's it from my side, okay, in this video, okay. Thank you for watching this video, right? Yeah, bye.